I thought I had it all together, but I was led astray the day you walked away. You were the clock that was ticking in my home. Changed my state of mind. Love's so hard to find.
Are you sure about that?
Your feelings changed like the weather. Went from clear to gray. All that time it came. How can I go on without falling apart? Love's so...
How's it going, Chapadums? My name is ZoBugTB and welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be reviewing the new Venom movie featuring Tom Hardy. As you saw from that excellent meme from the beginning, critics have been completely slating this film. I would say this is not an accurate portrayal of what the film is actually like, but if you're just a normal film goer and you've just never seen anything before about Venom, you know, you're not really up to date with all the comics, I personally think you'll find this film enjoyable. It has a fast pace and it will keep you interested. It is by no means a boring film. I will be discussing the pros and cons of my experience with this film before going into a spoiler discussion and what should be improved for the sequel, which will undoubtedly come out as the film has already made $50 million. As I already stated, this film has a fast pace along the same speed of Infinity War, which for a 2-hour film is very good. By the 30-minute mark, we already know everything about Eddie Brock, and he has already got the symbiote. Well, sort of. I was worried half of this film would be spent without Venom, but he is brought into the picture quite quickly, which does cause a few issues later, I will say. The actors in this film are great. Tom Hardy, despite his weird accent, does a very good job portraying Eddie Brock, and furthermore, the Golden Globe winning Michelle Williams and Riz Ahmed, I don't know how to pronounce his name, but they create very believable characters despite some of the development that seems to be cut out. Venom in the film looks very cool. The design for the character is very loyal to the comics, aside from missing the spider logo. However, I will discuss how they could easily bring this back. The voice of Venom is done by Tom Hardy, which does make them seem to be more in tune with each other, which solidifies the idea that Eddie looks insane, absolutely, in fact he's talking to a voice in his own head. For the most part, the CGI is quite good. In some situations it can look a bit strange, but it's never bad enough to take you out of the action. Considering how difficult it would have been to make a film almost entirely out of black goo, I think this can be excused. The lighting for this film generally supports a dark atmosphere created when Venom is suiting up. As a result, the CGI doesn't create like a massive contrast. This film does try to be an MCU film. Jokes are quite prevalent in the film, which some of them fail to land, but some of them are actually quite funny. I think a little more time working on the script will solve this for the next one. Venom does have an established personality in the film. He becomes quite a goofy character that likes to insult Eddie and responds to the audience when stuff happens. However, this is why the film doesn't appeal to Venom fans. As I mentioned prior, the script will need improving. This is without a doubt caused by the fact that the filmmakers secured a release date all the way back in February. It is certainly rushed, and some lines make no sense, and scenes kind of feel a bit out of place and a bit redundant. For example, there's an infamous lobster scene, which, if you've already seen the film, will know entirely what I'm on about. The film kind of turns into the Amazing Spider-Man, where the main character becomes goofy and a lot of Eddie's and Anne's relationship is built upon. This film makes Venom into a sort of wingman or some sort of love guru, which, although it's fun to watch, simply isn't the film that it was trying to be and was advertised to be, I suppose. We were expecting an anti-hero film, and really we just got another superhero film. It's obvious that the film started out as an R-rated sort of thing. It was going to be really gory, it was going to be really, really interesting, really cool, but they took things out of it to bring that rating down, which really upsets me, and it creates this really weird tonal sort of difference and confusion in the film. In some scenes the camera work does become needlessly shaky, which was probably done to hide some of the CGI, but it does make some of the action scenes a little bit confusing, especially the final fight where it's black goo versus silver goo, and then they're just like merging together, and the fact that most of the action scenes take place at night, to also hide the fact that Venom is literally just black, it does look a little bit dodgy. There are a few plot holes in the story which I would like to see addressed. Tom Hardy stated that 40 minutes of footage, including his favourite scenes, were cut, which explains why the film becomes confused. Apparently lots of dark humour was supposed to be added, making Venom a more psychotic and twisted character, much more loyal to his comic portrayal. They will need to restore this darker side of Venom for the sequel, because that is the character of Venom everyone wanted to see from this film. If they choose to include Spiderman somewhere down the line, this will be necessary to create a contrast between the violent and extreme Venom and the good-natured Spider-Man. The bond between Eddie and Venom is rushed. I would like to have seen a scene where like Venom may explore Eddie's brain or something, exposing how Venom figured out everything he knew and why he was drawn to Eddie in particular. This would be reminiscent of like Ultron's awakening from the Avengers film, but anything would be better than Venom just suddenly getting completely on board and with the old saving the Earth thing. He's like, oh yes, I like you, Eddie, and it's like, I'm not really going to explain why, but we're just going to go with it. And guys, that's pretty much going to tie up all of the non-spoilery stuff for Venom. I've got a lot of stuff that I still want to talk about in terms of specific things that happen. So if you guys are not really too worried about getting spoilers, then of course stick around. But pretty much, guys, this is the non-spoilery side of the review. Overall, I would give this a 7 out of 10. A pretty average film. I think there's a lot of things they could have done to improve it and then put it up to like the 9 out of 10. I think we all knew that it was going to be a little dodgy. You know, we had the first trailer coming out where Venom wasn't even in it, and so I think this is probably the best situation we probably could have got from. So yeah, really they just need to, they've got the actors, they got A-star actors, they got a great character idea with an amazing cult following. They just need to give it to someone who can make the script worthwhile and maybe improve the CGI just a tiny bit, but of course that costs a lot of money and they probably don't have access to that. But as I said, I would give this a 7 out of 10 because there was a lot of stuff that could be improved, but it is still fun to watch. It's not... it was a completely different film than what I was expecting it to be, but that didn't take away from my fun, I suppose. It did become more of a sort of a rom-com sort of thing, which I don't particularly like, but it was still a fun film to watch, if that's the point I'm trying to get across. So if you guys just like normal films, you just want to have a bit of fun, this film's pretty good. This film's pretty good. It's just, it kind of tried to be something that it wasn't. And I think that's their biggest sort of downside. But yeah, pretty much guys, we're going to be going into the spoiler side of things now. So I'm going to put a fat spoiler warning as we get into pretty much the second half of this review. So, the final plot points, which I think were important to see, were why Venom grows so attached to Anne's character. It's never explained, and it's discovered later on that Venom could actually bond with Anne without any problems, creating a brief and thick reference to She-Venom. The story has Eddie captured, and Venom taking over a dog, for whatever reason, and then Anne sees the dog, and then rescues Eddie, almost immediately after. Off-screen, we miss how Venom bonded with Anne, and what Venom said to convince Anne of their allegiance. Bear in mind, literally 5 minutes prior to her saving Eddie whilst bonded to Venom, she literally tries to kill the symbiote with an MRI machine. This just creates a really weird sort of plot jump, which makes the nature of the symbiote unclear, since he just bonds with the dog and doesn't, like, I think they tried to explain how the dog could potentially be a donor to a human, and so therefore the Venom symbiote is able to survive with the dog, but even if that was possible in real life, which it isn't, it doesn't make any sense, because that's literally saying, oh, that dog just happened to be the perfect match, and it's just like, no, can we just not do that? But the point is this makes, of course, the nature of the symbiote unclear, and wraps up all the subplots for the final battle. There was a big thing where it was almost Eddie doing his own thing, and then Anne and her new boyfriend, Doctor Guy, sort of discovering what the symbiote is, and then they just sort of went, yeah, nah, we're just gonna wrap this all up, so everyone thinks Venom's the good guy, yeah, kill bad guy, cool. But yeah, aside from that, it's, you know, there were numerous references in this film to other symbiote characters, such as She-Venom, which was a very pleasant surprise, and 2 other symbiotes. It's quite funny how symbiotes bond with female and males very differently. This is a small tangent, but when any symbiote bonds with like a male character, such as Venom when he bonds with Eddie, he turns into like a buff monster around the same size as like the Hulk. But when it bonds with a female character, even in the comics, she literally just becomes a slightly taller woman. And she has literally no additional muscle mass whatsoever. They just become incredibly thick, and it's just like, feels bad, man. But yeah, literally in the film, when she comes in to save Eddie, she's literally like a couple inches taller than this bold henchman, who somehow survives almost the entire film and is in the trailers. Whereas that's the same henchman that Venom can literally lift entirely off the ground despite being hunched over. It's like, ah. But yeah, back on track. The 2 extra symbiotes are a yellow symbiote, presumably Screen, which was seen to take over a rabbit and then just sort of dies, like, off screen, like Eddie walks in, he just sees a bunch of vomit, and it's just, oh, dry yellow stuff, sick. And then there's also a blue symbiote, which also dies later on, after the Indian Elon Musk, and decides to kill one of his own scientists or whatever, and then it just dies, and it's like, okay. The purpose of these extra symbiotes is quite pointless, as they don't even explain how the symbiote worked anyway. They could literally just make Venom the symbiote which kills all the test subjects in the film, and remove the other ones. The final fight is also very strange. It reminds me of the 2008 Hulk fight, where the hero is supposedly going against someone who's stronger in every single way, but then beats his ass anyway. It's never explained why Riot can grow sharp limbs and a wrecking ball, and why Venom cannot adapt to do the same. On their planet, they have no hosts. The reason they bond on Earth is because they need a respiring organism to survive in our atmosphere. Therefore, on their home planet, they're just goo. So how can one figure out to do makeshift weapons whilst not having access to a host beforehand? It's never explained how Venom is inherently weaker than Riot on their home planet. I feel like they needed to be a bit more clear with how that works. It's a weird dilemma which doesn't really change the fight at all, as Riot fights with his weapons once and then misses. He gets the massive arm, he turns into a massive blade and goes, "Yeah, yeet," tries to cut him in half and then misses by 7 meters. And then Eddie and Venom have a small little dialogue. But then he doesn't use it ever again. I think his hand turns into a claw or something, but then Venom does the exact same thing. So it's what do you mean, brother? He literally makes the wrecking ball, and it looks cool. You're like, oh damn, this guy knows how to use his symbiote. And then he uses it once and misses, and then doesn't use it again. But yeah, Riot is eventually destroyed when the rocket ship designed by the Elon Musk exploded, killing him, and supposedly killing Venom, but of course he turns out to be fine later. This creates a really weird anti-climax to the fight, but it did look kind of cool. The rocket's just flying off, and so Riot's like, alright, I'll just hop on in here, and so Venom just goes, nah, and just blows it up. And then of course fire just happens to be a big weakness to the symbiote, so he just kills him. And so it's what was Riot's plan? He knew that fire was a weakness to him, just because Venom is shown to know what his own weaknesses are, as he explains them to Eddie and Anne for some reason. But so why would Riot get into the spaceship knowing it could be easily destroyed, and Venom is still definitely alive? He pretty much kills Eddie Brock. He's like, yeah, I'm gonna stab you, but he knows the Venom symbiote can heal him. So it's bro, you knew he was still alive and you just let him blow you up. So it was a bit of a weird sort of turn near the end of the fight. But yeah, that pretty much sums up the entire film. But there are 2 end credit scenes at the end, both which I hate quite a lot. The second one is literally just an ad for Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Great job, Sony. It's almost like they had no sort of, I guess, they didn't really think this film was going to do very well, so they were like, oh yeah, no, you can see Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, which looks like it was done at 20 frames per second. Yeah, go watch this film instead, it's cool, yes, don't leave. But yeah, but then, of course, the first one is just bad, really. Cletus Catasi, or Carnage, I suppose, is revealed, but of course the symbiote isn't actually there yet. But the point is that he's played by Woody Harrelson. Woody Harrelson is a good actor. I have no doubt he can play a serial killer role, but when he's wearing that stupid red wig, he just looks dumb. Okay, they need to change that. I am not having the villain in the next Venom film Woody Harrelson with a weird afro thing. It is just really strange. But anyway, the sequel bait is obvious, and we can expect Carnage in the next film. But here is how I personally think they should address his character. Firstly, I think they need to make it so Cletus escapes from the prison somehow. I don't know, just don't make it just happen, but then don't introduce a complicated organization or something to explain it either. Just try and get a middle ground. Maybe you should bring in a really obscure villain for Venom from the comics or something. Make them fight, make them just happen to go to the prison and bust down a wall or something, you know. Of course, then all the Venom fans will be like, oh yeah, I know who that character is, and everyone else is just going to be like, alright, fair dues, you know. And then effectively have Venom then track down Cletus Catasi and then sort of fight him. You know, I can almost imagine a situation where he's in a coffee shop or something, and so he kicks him through the window. But then of course Spider-Man yeets in out of nowhere, and he's like, nah, this big black creature is now fighting the civilian, and so Spider-Man goes in, fights Venom for a little bit, and then what I suggest he does is Spider-Man probably uses some sort of sound-based weapon to disrupt Venom. And then, of course, because Cletus has been thrown through this window, he's cut open everywhere. But then, of course, what he may see is he might spot like some of the Venom symbiote, which is like unresponsive, as it's being sort of semi-separated. He then grabs it, but then it bonds into his bloodstream, which then creates the red appearance of Carnage. This, of course, is incredibly loyal to Carnage's character and how he sort of came about. I mean, they sort of twist about a little bit. But then, since Carnage actually has an immunity to sound, it's in the comics he gets it from a god. But I think if they just try and explain how Venom cells mutated, and therefore they're unresponsive to the Spider-Man attack. But then, of course, because the rest of Venom was disrupted, then he can't control it, therefore he gets Carnage. And then Carnage can start killing fools, and he's already stronger than Venom by default, just like the comics. And then, of course, this will mean that Spider-Man and Venom will have to team up to kill him. But then, of course, what they could do, actually, is during the fight, Venom may be like, oh, that's a cool spider insignia, and then he replicates it. There you go. Bam. Now Venom has his iconic look completely restored, and then him and Spider-Man go beat up Carnage. I think that's a pretty effective plot device. I mean, I'm not a movie director, but like, there you go. That's literally the plot. Sussed it right there. Of course, you're going to have to come up with a few better ideas, but you know, whatever. I would say this is probably the most effective way they could probably bring Carnage and Spider-Man into the sequel. This will also force him to make Venom more evil, in order to make the contrast between him and Spider-Man. And if they want to make it R-rated, they can, because Carnage is perfectly okay with like brutalizing people. But yeah, anyway guys, that is my sort of review and a sort of discussion about the Venom film and the potential sequel that may be coming out, which I'm fairly confident will. You know, they've already signed like Tom Hardy up for a Venom trilogy, and you know, they've already sort of gone, yeah, Carnage is here, you all know what's going to happen. So yeah guys, pretty much guys, I hope you enjoyed watching this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, all the other fancy stuff. You know, we're actually getting very, very close to that 1,000 subscriber milestone. I have been making a lot of videos over the last couple of weeks. Been super busy with A-level stuff. But yeah, pretty much once we get up to 1,000 subscribers, I'll do a video talking about my current setup and doing stuff like that. And then I might actually be able to start doing some streams. So yeah, you guys keep your eyes up on that. But anyway guys, I've said what I did say. Hope you enjoyed watching this video. Cue the music.